Tell us more about what the experience in your platform is. I mean, if I
Hmm.
log into an Inca-based survey,
Yeah.
what am I going to run into that's different than the last survey I took?
Yeah. Good question. So 80% of the questions that would be asked would be very similar to in a traditional survey. So you'll have your choice-based questions, your ranking questions. But number one, they won't be delivered in a sort of a form-based interface that sort of takes what sort of goes question by question as a traditional survey would move to the next screen. It will
What
scroll as if you're kind of
what I
having a
call like taking a test, right?
yeah, exactly. It will scroll in a way that is more reflective of how people would spend their time in terms of having kind of a WhatsApp dialogue with a friend. Number one. Number two, we make it much more visual in terms of the types of scale types that we use. And number three, which is more of the quality scale component, we make more use of open-ended questions. And then we use the AI to go much deeper on those through really intelligent probing that is responsive to what people tells us and digs deeper, so we get much richer insight from people through the open ends.
Well, let's look at the open ends because
Mm-hmm.
I've explored your platform and a number of others, and there's some
Yeah,
very good capabilities. In fact, open ends were, the initial proving ground for a lot of AI assisted
yeah.
analysis and linguistic and everything else that we could do to save so much researcher time. But I've always been intrigued by the pathing that your particular open end allows. I've
Mm.
seen some others that do it different ways, but can you explain uh, kind of the thing that I think first interested me when we had, I think, our original
Yeah,
discussion with Inca? I was looking
yeah.
for an open end that could be used as a screener for
Hmm.
B2B surveys that would be analyzed
Hmm.
in real time. And of
Yeah,
course, open ends are always been avoid them in your quant survey. That's the place where surveys die and your respondents will drop and all that. But tell us how your open end works. I think there's
hmm,
particular value in our audience hearing about that.
yeah, exactly. So what will happen is, out of the box, we've done extensive training of the AI so that after somebody answers, the initial open-ended question will be set by the researcher, like in any survey. After somebody answers that question, we've trained the AI to ask a really good follow-up question for elaboration that is specific to each individual and what they said. And a key part of that training is making sure that we follow best practice principles for asking questions in market research. So, not asking leading questions, for example, not asking two questions in one, not probing on the answers that are off topic and being ethical. So, we've built all that training in. So, out of the box, it will ask a good question for elaboration. But we also wanted to allow the researcher to be able to brief and steer how the AI probes. And really, you can think of this as analogous to working with a human moderator if you're doing more traditional qualitative research. A lot of the time, you will let the moderator probe according to their knowledge, their skills, their experience. And that's the training we've given the AI in our system. But sometimes you'll say to a moderator, okay, for this question, if the participant mentions this particular topic, we're really interested in that. So we want to make sure you kind of really dig and probe on that. Maybe if they answer something else, we're not interested. Or actually, in this question, if they don't mention that particular topic, that's going to be interesting. So why don't you probe on that? So all of those things that you can do with Inca as well, the researcher can give a brief to the AI, they can identify certain topics they're interested in or not, and get the AI to prioritize and focus on those. So we're very much, putting the researcher in control in terms of how they brief and structure how the AI probes.
So really, what you're saying, as I'm hearing it, is that you can let the AI essentially rely on its training and iterate itself, or you can
Yeah.
direct it. You can say, look for
Yeah.
this, and if here, go there, if there, follow that path. So you can basically give it something like a GPT prompt.
Yeah, exactly. You can keep it simple and just set it up very quickly and just let it pro for elaboration, or you can use it, for example, to actually replicate pretty complicated qualitative approaches like laddering by giving you the appropriate kind of briefing and instructions.
Okay. And that's where, the company being kind of quant focused, but I don't know, I'll call it enhanced. That's
Yeah.
where the qualitative elements are really adding to a survey. Let's think more about the front end because all of what we've been talking about in a couple previous sessions is structuring surveys
Hmm.
and what I call very generally humanizing the structure you've built, looking at
Yeah.
the engagement, looking at, how real people can get through something that you've built and finding accommodations and best practices there. What do you find, and I don't know if it's current or maybe at first, about people encountering a different, I'll call it survey environment? I mean, this is
Hmm.
different than the typical test
Yeah. Yeah.
academic looking check off the box survey that's been around for decades. I mean, decades and decades. That's all we've really had
Mm.
to work with
Mm.
for a quant online data collection experience. But now suddenly someone's in this different environment. It looks different. They're answering differently. Um, what's been your experience with people reacting to that positively and negatively? And then the second part I'd like to ask is, do you think that affects the data positively and negatively? So maybe
Hmm.
experience, pros and cons, and data, pros and cons from your platform experience of someone.
Yeah. Okay. Um, I can talk both to the experience of the participant and the experience of the researcher, if that's helpful.
Yep.
Um, so, in terms of the participant, we very often ask a question about how they found the experience compared to other surveys that they've done. And we always find that around 90% of people say it's a better experience, and more than half say it's a much better experience. And when we ask them why, there's essentially kind of two broad areas that they tell us. One is the form factor. So the fact it has more of a conversational flow, that it feels more intuitive, it's more visual. They just enjoy it more than a traditional survey.
Wait.
And
A survey people enjoy?
they,
No.
they do. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I honestly believe that many people who are part of research panels are actually motivated, in part at least, by the opportunity to give their opinion,
Yeah.
and engaging with different types of products and services, and actually. So they will often come to it with some goodwill, and if we can give them an engaging experience, they will actually enjoy it. And number two, and this is really where the AI probing comes in, people really value the opportunity to express their opinion. They tell us things like, I feel like I'm being heard, like my opinion matters. And that's rewarding for people. So,
Yeah.
so that's from the participant perspective.
I've got to add one of the things that I only found out after many, many, many years is to throw an open end at the end of almost all my surveys saying, is there anything else about this topic that you want to say that we haven't asked you about?
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how much depth and value I've gained for clients, but I
Hmm.
was never taught that. I never really, it kind of, just chanced into thinking that way. It sounds like that's kind of more a natural part of what people are reporting, that
Yeah.
during the survey, they're able to kind of open up like that and they're not constrained to answering within certain boundaries of what the researcher has put in front of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because the thing feels like a dialogue, because essentially it's structured like a conversation, as we're humans, we enjoy talking with people. We enjoy having conversations. Through conversations, we find out really what people really think. We get to emotions in a way that through a series of question answer is very hard to do.